So I've made about 30 videos since last night, and they're all just me saying fuck repeatedly. Fuck! And while everyone's trying to figure out why the Democrats failed so miserably, understand that the Democratic Party will not be reflecting on what they did wrong. Instead, they will chalk up their loss to racism and sexism. And to be fair, that's a big part of it. America looked at a black woman, then looked at a white, convicted felon, rapist, racist con man, and said, we're going to stick with the white guy. But there's more to it. Because while most American women did in fact vote for Kamala Harris, the majority of white women, once again for the third election in a row, voted for Donald Trump. And while the majority of people of color voted for Kamala, the majority of Latino men voted for Donald Trump. Most men voted for Donald Trump, except the majority of black men who voted for Kamala in droves. And yet, for some reason, during the entire election, Democrats chose to shame and condemn black men for maybe, possibly, supporting Trump. Interesting strategy. There's no simple explanation. There's no single reason. There's a lot of reasons. I think another reason is this. Think of 2020, right? We had the election, but also that whole year, especially that summer, we had a giant protest movement against police abuse, against police killing, the George Floyd protests. There's a lot of energy. And most of the people in those protests were Democrats or progressives or liberal, at least leaned that way. And Democrats, although several politicians, were against the protest and tried to, tamp it down, for the most part, the Democratic Party tapped in to that protest energy. They were more than happy to chant Black Lives Matter. Nancy Pelosi put on the kente cloth and gave the Black Power fist. They tapped into that energy, and in turn, the majority of the activists turned out for them. Joe Biden won in a fucking landslide. And then proceeded to, for the next 4 years, fund police higher than ever before, and not only ignore protesters, but absolutely crush the next protest movement that occurred. This year, protests over Israel's genocide. And Democrats decided that they were not going to have that shit. Refused to listen, refused to do anything different, refused to let uncommitted movement speak at the DNC, didn't give them a fucking 30-second spot. And what happened? Those activists, people who were upset by all that, people who saw how Democrats were responding to these protests, they didn't turn out. It probably didn't help that Kamala was touting the endorsement of Dick fucking Cheney, one of the worst people in the world, a fucking warmonger, during giant anti-war protests. Interesting strategy. All that said, I think one of the biggest reasons that the majority of Americans voted for Donald fucking Trump was inflation. Grocery prices were cheaper under Trump. You see, the average American voter is really dumb. And they don't pay attention. So they didn't really understand that a global pandemic led to a global inflation crisis, the likes of which the world had never seen. And the president has little to no control over that. Fair or not, the sitting president takes the blame for the current economy. Biden took the blame. Kamala was seen as an extension of Biden. Didn't help that she said she wouldn't do anything differently. So a lot of Americans thought, well, yeah, everything was cheaper under Trump, so I'm going to vote for Trump. Ignoring that it was a global inflation crisis and ignoring the fact that prices always go up in America. Yeah, things were cheaper under Trump. Guess what? They were even cheaper under Obama, and even cheaper under Bush, even cheaper under Clinton. And oh my God, under the other Bush, they were so cheap. And under Reagan, they were the cheapest ever. That's how it goes. And yet, fuck.